Aaron was a young teenager with a heart full of kindness, but his life was anything but easy. Humble and hardworking, he spent his days juggling school and odd jobs to help his overworked mother and support his two younger siblings. Every evening was the same: quiet streets, a tired walk home, and dreams of a better future. But this night was different. As Aaron walked along a dimly lit sidewalk, the silence of the night was broken by an eerie sight: a man lying motionless on the ground. The faint glow of a flickering streetlight illuminated the scene, making Aaron freeze in his tracks. Fear and doubt gripped him. What if someone saw him near the man and assumed the worst? What if helping him brought trouble Aaron couldn't afford? But Aaron couldn't ignore the man's condition. Against his instincts to walk away, Aaron took a deep breath, his mind racing with all the risks. Kneeling beside the stranger, he checked for signs of life. Drawing on the basic first aid training he'd learned at school, Aaron performed chest compressions while calling emergency services. As he worked, time seemed to slow, the tension thick in the air. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance, growing louder with every passing second. Aaron stayed until he saw the ambulance pull up, its red and blue lights illuminating the street. Without waiting for anyone to ask questions or notice him, Aaron slipped into the shadows and disappeared into the night. The identity of the man remained a mystery to Aaron, but the events of that night would soon turn his life upside down in ways he could never have imagined. Aaron's life was far from easy, but it was one he embraced with quiet determination. Living in a cramped, worn-down apartment in a struggling neighborhood, every day felt like a battle against the odds. His mother, Maria, was the backbone of the family, working double shifts at a factory to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. The strain showed in her tired eyes and the way her hands trembled after long hours of physical labor. Yet she never complained, and neither did Aaron. At just 17, Aaron had already taken on responsibilities far beyond his years. His mornings began before sunrise, waking up to prepare breakfast for his younger siblings, Lily and Marcus, before walking them to school. Their smiles and laughter, though small, were his motivation to keep pushing forward. Aaron would then rush to his own classes, sitting in the back of the room, always focused but quietly tired. After school, while most kids his age hung out with friends or played sports, Aaron headed straight to work. He juggled a series of odd jobs: delivering newspapers at dawn, stocking shelves at a grocery store in the afternoon, and sweeping floors at a local diner in the evenings. Each paycheck, though small, went directly to helping his mother pay the rent, buy groceries, and keep the electricity running. Despite the hardships, Aaron remained selfless and kind. He was the type of person who would give his last dollar to someone who needed it more, or help an elderly neighbor carry groceries up the stairs. It wasn't just his family he cared for, it was his community too. People in the neighborhood often described him as the boy with a heart of gold. But behind his quiet smile, Aaron carried a heavy burden. He dreamed of escaping the cycle of poverty that had trapped his family for generations. Aaron's ultimate goal was to go to college, a dream his mother always encouraged, but one that seemed increasingly out of reach. Scholarships were competitive, and every dollar he earned felt like it was already spent before it reached his hands. Still, Aaron refused to let his struggles define him. In the rare moments he had to himself, he'd sit on the fire escape of their apartment building, looking out at the city lights, and imagine a life where he and his family didn't have to struggle. But dreams often came at a cost. There were times when Aaron would skip meals to ensure his siblings had enough to eat. His clothes were hand-me-downs, patched and worn, yet he wore them without complaint. When his classmates teased him for not having the latest sneakers or gadgets, Aaron simply smiled and shrugged it off. He knew his priorities were different, and he wasn't about to let superficial things distract him from what truly mattered. One particular memory stuck with Aaron. It was a cold winter evening, and the power had gone out in their apartment due to an unpaid bill. His mother sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Aaron, instead of despairing, lit a few candles and turned it into an impromptu game night for his siblings. They played cards and laughed, the warmth of their bond making up for the lack of heat in the room. That night, Aaron silently vowed to do whatever it took to give his family a better life. Yet, as resilient as Aaron was, he often felt the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. There were moments of doubt, moments where he wondered if all his efforts would ever amount to anything. But those doubts never lingered for long. Aaron's mother, though exhausted, always reminded him of the power of hope and hard work. "We might not have much, but we have each other," she would say, and that was enough to keep Aaron going. Little did Aaron know, his unwavering dedication and selflessness were about to be put to the ultimate test. The events of that fateful night, the man he saved and the decision he made, would soon set him on a path that would transform not only his life, but the lives of those he loved. Unbeknownst to Aaron, the man he had saved that fateful night was no ordinary stranger. Mr. Collins, one of the city's wealthiest and most influential CEOs, was recovering in the hospital, unaware of how close he had come to losing his life. His doctors informed him that had it not been for the quick thinking and first aid of a good Samaritan, he might not have survived. Grateful and humbled, Mr. Collins became determined to find the person who had saved him. The media quickly picked up the story after Mr. Collins announced a public search for the mysterious teenager. News outlets broadcasted his heartfelt plea, "To the young man who saved my life, I owe you everything. Please come forward. I want to thank you personally." Along with his message, Mr. Collins offered a significant monetary reward to anyone who could provide information leading to the Good Samaritan's identity. Meanwhile, Aaron continued his life as if nothing had happened. He went to school, worked his part-time jobs, and took care of his family, all while avoiding the growing buzz about the CEO's search. His classmates and neighbors speculated about who the mysterious hero might be, with some even jokingly pointing fingers at Aaron. But Aaron brushed it off, too humble to reveal the truth. He worried that stepping forward might bring unwanted attention or disrupt his quiet life. Mr. Collins, however, was relentless in his search. He poured resources into tracking down the person who had saved him. Investigators combed through surveillance footage from the area, but the video was too grainy to identify Aaron. Then a breakthrough came in the form of a single clue, a school badge that Aaron had unknowingly dropped while helping Mr. Collins. When Mr. Collins traced the badge back to Aaron's high school, the pieces began to fall into place. The school principal confirmed that Aaron was an exemplary student, known for his kindness and dedication. Mr. Collins arranged a surprise visit to the school, determined to meet the young man who had changed his life. The day of the visit was like any other for Aaron. He was sitting quietly in class, focused on his studies, when an unexpected announcement came over the intercom. The principal's voice echoed through the halls, asking all students to gather in the auditorium for a special assembly. Confused but curious, Aaron and his classmates made their way to the large hall. As the students settled into their seats, whispers of speculation filled the room. Then the doors swung open, and in walked Mr. Collins, flanked by his security team and a small group of reporters. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the students recognized the famous CEO. But Aaron froze in his seat, his heart racing. He had a sinking feeling that the spotlight was about to land squarely on him. Mr. Collins took the stage and began recounting the story of how a young man had saved his life. As he described the events of that night, Aaron felt the eyes of his classmates turning toward him. He kept his head down, hoping to go unnoticed, but his quiet demeanor only made him stand out more. Finally, Mr. Collins held up the school badge and asked, "Is Aaron here today?" The room fell silent as Aaron reluctantly stood up, his face a mix of embarrassment and nervousness. Mr. Collins smiled warmly and invited him onto the stage. "This young man," Mr. Collins said, placing a hand on Aaron's shoulder, "is a true hero. He saved my life, and I can never thank him enough." The audience erupted into applause as reporters snapped photos and asked questions. Aaron, though overwhelmed, managed to answer a few shyly. Mr. Collins then turned to him and said, "I'd like to invite you and your family to a formal event this weekend, where I plan to honor you properly." Aaron nodded, unsure of what to expect, but too polite to decline. As the assembly ended and the students returned to their classrooms, Aaron's quiet world had been turned upside down. The recognition he had never sought was now unavoidable, and the journey ahead would be unlike anything he had ever imagined. The day of the formal event arrived, and Aaron stood in front of his mirror, adjusting the ill-fitting suit he had borrowed from a kind neighbor. His mother, Maria, fussed over him, smoothing out creases and making sure his siblings looked presentable as well. Though nervous, Aaron couldn't deny the small flicker of pride in his chest. He had been invited to this grand event for something truly remarkable, yet he still couldn't shake the unease of being in the spotlight. The venue was a sight Aaron had only ever seen in movies. An opulent hall with chandeliers sparkling like stars, tables draped in white linen, and waiters serving food he couldn't even pronounce. His family sat at a reserved table near the front, their awe evident as they took in the grandeur around them. Cameras flashed and murmurs of admiration filled the room as people recognized Aaron as the young hero who had saved Mr. Collins. As the program began, Mr. Collins took the stage to thunderous applause. Dressed in a sharp tuxedo, his presence commanded the room, but his tone was warm and sincere. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "tonight is not about me. It's about the young man who saved my life, a selfless act of bravery from someone who didn't even know me. Someone who, despite his own struggles, chose to help a stranger without hesitation." The audience listened intently as Mr. Collins recounted the events of that night, describing the moment he collapsed on the sidewalk and how Aaron had come to his rescue. "When I woke up in the hospital," he said, "all I could think about was finding this young man. I needed to thank him, to let him know how much his actions meant to me, and how they've changed my perspective on life." Aaron shifted uncomfortably in his chair as the room's attention turned toward him. Mr. Collins gestured for him to join him on stage, and though his legs felt like jelly, Aaron stood and made his way to the front. The applause was deafening, but all Aaron could hear was the rapid pounding of his heart. When he reached the stage, Mr. Collins placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Aaron," he said, looking directly at him, "you didn't just save my life. You reminded me of the values that truly matter: kindness, compassion, and selflessness. And tonight, I want to do more than just thank you." Aaron's breath caught in his throat as Mr. Collins continued. "You remind me of my late son, your bravery, your humility, and your heart. And so I've made a decision. I've decided to make you a part of my family." The audience gasped in unison, their surprise mirrored on Aaron's face. Mr. Collins paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. Then with a smile, he revealed his decision. "I've named you as the heir to my company and fortune, Aaron. From this day forward, your life will change. But I want you to know, it's not just because of what you did for me, it's because of who you are." The room erupted into applause, but Aaron stood frozen, unable to process what he had just heard. His mother burst into tears, clutching his younger siblings as they watched in disbelief. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment, their cameras flashing as Aaron tried to find the words to respond. I don't know what to say," Aaron stammered, his voice trembling. Mr. Collins smiled warmly. "Just say yes," he said, earning a ripple of laughter from the audience. Aaron nodded, his emotions too overwhelming for words. The night ended with a standing ovation, but for Aaron it felt like the beginning of a new chapter, one he had never imagined for himself. As he left the stage, surrounded by applause and admiration, he couldn't help but wonder what this new life would hold. The echoes of applause still filled Aaron's ears as he walked back to his table, his legs feeling unsteady after the shocking announcement. He sat down beside his family, who were just as overwhelmed as he was. His mother, Maria, held his hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Aaron," she whispered, her voice trembling, "you've made us so proud." The event wasn't over yet. After a brief intermission, Mr. Collins returned to the stage, this time flanked by several of his company's top executives. A large screen lit up behind him, displaying photos of Aaron and highlights from his life, gathered from neighbors and teachers who had been interviewed for this special night. "As I prepared for tonight," Mr. Collins began, "I wanted to understand what made this young man so remarkable. What I discovered only strengthened my decision. Aaron has shown kindness and resilience in the face of unimaginable challenges. His story is one of hope and determination." The screen shifted to a short video featuring testimonials from people who knew Aaron. His teachers spoke of his diligence and bright future. A neighbor shared how Aaron would shovel snow from driveways during the winter, never asking for payment. A shop owner recounted how Aaron had once found and returned a lost wallet filled with cash. The audience listened intently, their admiration for Aaron growing with each story. As the video ended, Mr. Collins turned to address the crowd directly. Aaron doesn't just deserve recognition, he deserves opportunity. And that's why I'm not only naming him my heir, but also offering him a mentorship at my company. He will learn everything he needs to become a successful leader. Aaron sat frozen, his mind spinning. Just days ago, he had been struggling to pay for groceries, and now he was being offered a future he hadn't dared to dream of. The room erupted into applause once more, but Aaron's heart was racing with doubt. Could he live up to such high expectations? What if he failed? Sensing Aaron's hesitation, Mr. Collins smiled and gestured for him to join him on stage once again. "Come on up, Aaron," he said. "Let's talk about the future." Aaron rose slowly, his hands shaking as he made his way to the stage. The crowd cheered him on, their excitement palpable. When he reached Mr. Collins, the CEO handed him a microphone. "I know this is a lot to take in," Mr. Collins said, "but I want you to share how you're feeling with everyone here tonight." Aaron hesitated, staring at the microphone as 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. Finally, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "I don't know how to put this into words," he said, his voice trembling. "I never expected anything like this. I just did what I thought was right." His humility moved the audience and many wiped away tears as Aaron continued. "All I've ever wanted is to make life better for my family. My mom works so hard, and my siblings deserve every chance to succeed. I don't know if I deserve this, but I promise to do my best to make the most of it." The crowd gave him a standing ovation as Mr. Collins clapped him on the back. "That's the attitude of a true leader," Mr. Collins said, his voice filled with pride. As the event concluded, Aaron was surrounded by well-wishers and reporters eager to capture his story. But amid the chaos, he felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunity he had been given, but for the values his mother had instilled in him. By the end of the night, Aaron's life had changed forever. The boy who had once struggled to make ends meet was now on a path toward greatness, and his journey was only just beginning. The days following the formal event felt like a whirlwind for Aaron. His story was everywhere, on the news and newspapers and trending across social media. Strangers stopped him on the street to congratulate him, and even his classmates, who once barely noticed him, now treated him like a celebrity. While the attention was overwhelming, Aaron remained grounded, holding on to the values that had carried him through his struggles. At Mr. Collins' invitation, Aaron began spending his afternoons at the company's headquarters. The towering glass building was a stark contrast to the cramped apartment he called home. Aaron felt out of place at first, surrounded by executives in tailored suits, in a world of business he knew nothing about. But Mr. Collins reassured him, guiding him through each step and explaining how the company operated. "You don't have to know everything at once," Mr. Collins told him. "What matters is that you're willing to learn, and I see that in you." With time, Aaron grew more comfortable, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. He shadowed Mr. Collins during meetings, learned about leadership and decision-making, and even began offering small suggestions during brainstorming sessions. Despite his new responsibilities, Aaron never forgot his family. One of the first things he did with his newfound resources was pay off his mother's debts. The relief on her face was worth more than anything money could buy. He also moved his family into a modest but comfortable home in a safer neighborhood where his younger siblings could play outside without fear. But Aaron didn't stop there. He knew what it was like to struggle, and he wanted to give back. With Mr. Collins' support, he started a charity dedicated to helping underprivileged kids access education, food, and basic necessities. The organization's first project was a scholarship program for students from low-income families, giving them the chance to pursue their dreams just as Aaron was now pursuing his. As Aaron adjusted to his new life, he found himself reflecting often on the night he saved Mr. Collins. What if he had ignored the man lying on the sidewalk? What if he had been too afraid to help? Those questions reminded him of the importance of kindness and courage, no matter how small the act might seem. One evening, Aaron stood on the balcony of his new home, looking out at the city lights. His life had changed in ways he could never have imagined, but he knew it wasn't just luck. It was the result of his choices to help others, to persevere, and to stay true to his values. In a quiet moment of reflection, Aaron recorded a message for his charity's website. "You never know how one small choice can change your life, or someone else's," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The night I chose to help a stranger, I didn't know it would lead to all this. But I've learned that kindness is more powerful than we realize. So to anyone out there who feels like they don't have much to give, remember this. Your actions, no matter how small, can make a difference. The video ends with Aaron smiling, his message resonating as the screen fades to black. The once struggling teenager had become a symbol of hope and inspiration, proof that even the smallest act of kindness could lead to extraordinary things.